Cops of Reddit, what are some of the best worst ways people have tried to get out of getting a ticket from you? Someone I knew was trying to get out of drinking and driving. She went up to the cop and was like, listen, we're all white here. Needless to say, she went to jail. Co-worker of mine was speeding one day on a southbound highway. Told the cop, hey man, I know you got to give me a ticket, but please write out for northbound, or else my wife will think I'm cheating on her. The cop laughed and told him to slow down and let him off. He was not married, nor was he even seeing anybody. One gave me a get out of jail Monopoly card. Let him off with a warning. What else could I do? He had the card. Pulled over an unregistered vehicle. They tried to offer me money. Behind me was a very large group of students watching on. All of them had access to my microphone to hear what was going on. I tried to explain this to the driver. He simply wouldn't listen or didn't understand. Not that it would have made a difference, but I would have preferred to avoid having to arrest him for a stupid mistake. He ended up getting arrested for a range of charges. Edit, the student were police academy students from NSW, Australia. We had lots that fortnight because reasons. They could hear the radio mic on my chest to see how I dealt with certain situations. This was done at a roadside random breath test stop, hence why they were all standing around in the background. Not a cop, but I've seen many of my ex's ways on avoiding tickets, and she has avoided many tickets. Her best escape was by faking being mute. Unfortunately, she knows sign language. Most cops would feel bad ticketing her, so they just let her go. While I feel bad for those cops. Flirting is always bad, but is especially bad when the driver is really old, really young, or has their family in the car with them. I don't consider myself to be super attractive, but people will do anything to get out of a ticket. Threatening the officer is also pretty bad. That's happened before. Sometimes it is threatening to kill my family if I write them a ticket. But sometimes people get a little more creative. Some racist people assume that I am an illegal immigrant and threaten to report me if I write them a ticket. That one always makes me laugh. Bribing is always interesting. Some of the things people come up with are actually kind of funny. As a driver, had cop pull me over. I was 17 roughly. Driving my mom's new car at almost 30 over in a residential area. Cop walks up. Asks if it's a new car. Yup. Bet you can't even hear the engine when it gets going. Yup. Steering is probably pretty good. Right? Yup. etc. for several more questions. Then just walks back to his car and drives off. His point was well established. But it was weird as hell to me at the time. I literally never offered one excuse. He did. And I just sat there answering yup. Not a cop, but a friend was once stopped for a broken headlight. In my country there's a fine for that. He didn't know what to do, so he got out of his car, no paranoid police here, and told the officer that the light does that sometimes and kicked it. It actually ducking worked. The light turned back on and he was off his way. I've done the same. Had an old Volvo that if you hit the passenger side light, it would come on. One night I forgot to give it the old bump and drove off. Pulled over. The officer asked if I knew it was out. And I told him the secret. He hit it for me. Came back and said, well, I can tell you have better things to spend your money on. I'll let you off with a warning. Not a cop, but I've been pulled over 5+ times and have never had a ticket. I also have several family friends who are officers. 2 best pieces of advice I have. 1. Be as perfectly respectful and polite as you can. Please, thank you. Yes sir ma'am, no sir ma'am. 2. If it is night time, turn on all your interior lights before the officer even gets to your window. It is a lot less scary approaching a car that you can see inside of. Not a cop, but someone I know got pulled over doing about 80 in a 50. And when the officer approached his window and asked why were you driving so fast, this person's response was, sorry officer, I was trying to get my flux capacitor up to speed. The cop didn't find it very funny. As a patrol officer, you pull cars over multiple times a day. After almost 10 years in law enforcement, I've pulled over many. I've heard them all. Best, that would have to be the guy I pulled over for speeding. I made my approach. Guy rolls down window. I said my speech. He looks me right in the eye and softly says I was speeding. I'm sorry. But, you see, I'm in the military. Just an hour ago I got back from my tour in Iraq. My girlfriend here just picked me up from the airport, and to be honest, I was rushing home to my 2-minute welcome home bang session. Looking in the backseat I seen military style duffel bags. Miscellaneous military BDU uniforms. A folded up welcome home banner, and his girlfriend in passenger seat gave me this yay, that's the truth look. Have fun, I said, and handed him back his license. Worst, oh man. There's so many. I have to take a sheet is used more often than one might think. The ones I always enjoy are, well, I know officer so and so very well. He'll get me out of this. That's guaranteed to get you a ticket. Following closely is the do you not have anything better to do than harass the public? Nope, not today. Not this exact moment. You're the lucky winner. Press hard. My dad once pulled over a woman who claimed she had diarrhea and that's why she was driving so fast. He's an understanding guy, so naturally he let her drive home. But followed her and wrote the ticket there. My dad was pulled over going way too fast on the interstate late at night, like 1 to 2 AM. He is an anesthesiologist and got called into work because someone had been shot. It turned out that the person who had been shot was a cop. And so not only did my dad not receive a ticket, he got a police escort to the hospital, and he has refused to tell me exactly how fast they went. Hearing that story as a kid made me think my very by the book awkward dad was super cool. Former highway patrol officer. More than anything, I've had people say they are in a hurry to get to the bathroom. On more than one occasion. They've even gone as far as to piss themselves in hopes to avoid a ticket. Only a cadet. But I did go on ride-alongs. Someone tried to get out of a ticket by using religion. They had said that they were a great Christian and didn't deserve a ticket. Called us evil. Got a ticket. Get dispatched to an accident. And find a Corolla flipped onto its roof. Driver was sitting on the curb with very minor injuries and no one else was hurt in the collision. I ended up arresting driver for DUI. She was 19 and this was her third DUI. Her response: why are we wasting each other's time? Just let me go. It's not like I held anyone. Unfortunately, with the way the courts work in LA County, she was probably going to get it without any consequences. Lol, I'm not a cop. And I don't drink alcohol. But I couldn't resist saying this once when I was pulled over. The officer approached my car. I gave him my license, registration and insurance. Then he asked me, "Are you drinking tonight?" And I answered, "Are you buying?" I wish I could say that was an original. But I actually heard that from a friend of mine who was a retired highway patrolman. Working for a small town where everyone knows everyone. I see a car blow a stop sign at a high rate of speed without tapping their brakes or slowing down. I pull the car over and it's a woman that had served me lunch at our local diner earlier in the day. When I walk up I see her starting to cry until she recognizes me. Then magically the tears were instantly gone. We make small chit chat for a couple minutes and she tells me thank God it's you who pulled me over or else I know I'd be getting a ticket. I laugh and ask for her ID just for formalities. I wasn't planning on giving her a citation until I saw her past record. In the previous 3 months she had been pulled over 7 times and given 5 citations. Everything from speeding, mostly for over 25 miles per hour the posted limit, and running stop signs. Seeing this I know she hasn't learned her lesson about safe driving and needs another reminder. So I write her. I go back to her car and she starts screaming at me saying I thought you were one of the cool cops. I tell her to have a nice night and to take a moment to calm down before she drives off. She tells me screw you and rolls up her window. Just because I know you doesn't mean I'm automatically going to let you go. And if I do write you, it doesn't mean I'm not a cool cop. There was a middle-aged guy who bought a brand new Mercedes convertible SLK. He took off down the road, flooring it up to 80 miles per hour and enjoying the wind blowing through what little hair he had left on his head. This is great, he thought, and floored it some more. He looked in his rearview mirror and there was a Florida Highway Patrol trooper behind him. Blue lights flashing and siren blasting. I can get away from him with no problem, thought the man, and he floored it some more and flew down the road at over 100 miles per hour. Then he thought, what am I doing? I'm too old for this kind of thing, and pulled over to the side of the road and waited for the state trooper to catch up with him. The trooper pulled in behind the Mercedes and walked up to the man. "Sir," he said, looking at his watch, "my shift ends in 30 minutes and today is Friday the 13th. If you can give me a reason why you were speeding that I've never heard before, I'll let you go." The man looked back at the trooper and said, "Last week my wife ran off with a state trooper, and I thought you were bringing her back." The state trooper said, "Have a nice day." Obligatory not a cop, but my father once got out of a ticket by pretending to be a Catholic priest. He is not Catholic but uses some of the same liturgical dress and is easily mistaken for a priest when wearing a clerical shirt and collar. When he was pulled over for speeding, he made sure the cop saw his collar and his cane. The cop didn't want to give a ticket to a sick priest and just let him go on without a warning. My father replied with "Bless you, my son," and went on his merry way. TLDR, my dad impersonates Catholic priests. Also not a cop, but my best friend got out of a ticket for accidentally flashing a bob at the officer. She had just gotten a tattoo that went around the outside of her breast and couldn't wear a bra while it was healing. She was pulled over for speeding, and while nervously trying to get her ID, insurance, and registration, her bob fell out of her tank top. The police officer kept trying to get her attention and she got frustrated and sort of yelled, "Yes, I know. License and registration. Give me a minute." And the officer responded with, "Miss, please, your shirt." She looked down, became beet red, and quickly tucked her bob back in and handed him her paperwork without trying to make any eye contact. The officer started laughing. He realized she was incredibly embarrassed and not actually trying to flash him, so he told her just to slow it down and let her go. She's gotten out of a few other tickets pretty ingeniously, but that's my favorite story. Edit, a word. Sorry. Didn't catch my autocorrect. I am not a cop, but my dad told me a story about his friend when he was younger. His friend was pulled over by a cop one day, and when the cop came up to his window, my dad's friend said, "Yes, I would like a cheeseburger and fries, please." Apparently the cop thought it was so funny that he let him go. Not a cop, but one time I got pulled over by this little midget cop, and I, all 6 feet 8 inches of me, decided to ask if I could get out of the car and if she would like to hop on my shoulders to see the world from that high up. At first she was offended, but I explained it was nothing demeaning or anything. And after a little convincing, she hopped right up. She even requested I walk around town with her up there for a bit. We were a huge hit with the crowds. This was Saturday night in downtown, and I'm proud to say 6 months later, we're now engaged. The kicker of the whole thing? That little meatball still gave me the ticket. Gotta love her though, haha. Best cop moment. My best friend committed suicide after a problem with his girlfriend. No, I will not go into details. His brother, my brother, got a call from mom saying she saw the girlfriend and was having a panic attack and couldn't breathe. We go duck in Max 7 up and down this 18-mile road to get to her, and I'm driving like a lunatic with my hazards on. Of course. Get pulled over. 80 miles per hour in a 55. Officer asks what going on. We explain. He checks ID, insurance, etc. Makes sure I'm not impaired, and then says, "Follow me. You've got an escort, but do not go past me." Ducking, greatest act of kindness to a stranger. Not a cop, but was in the back seat with a female friend of mine driving. She was only going like 10 kilometers above the speed limit on an empty street. Speeding is bad regardless. And was pulled over by a cop. She takes off her jacket. And she is wearing a white dress shirt underneath. Unbuttons the top 3 buttons. Which shows some cleavage. And a male officer arrives. My friend is behaving nicely and respectfully. With a bit of a flirting and charming attitude. She drops some papers on the ground near the end. Bends down to pick it up, exposing more cleavage, and then gets away with no ticket. And I'm just sitting there going WTF. This is not the car you're looking for. In an Obi-Wan Kenobi impression with the hand wave. The coolest thing I witnessed a friend do that worked and got him out of a speeding ticket. The officer tried hard not to crack, then just bent over below the window line where we couldn't see him but could hear him laugh. He then raised himself and said, "You have a good day." Then left. My cousin recently passed away. But one of the funniest stories he ever told has to do with this. One day, him and his wife were speeding down the road to get to our house quickly for supper. Doing about 40 kilometers over the speed limit. On the way here, he was pulled over by the cops before they passed the local corner store. So the cop gets him to roll down his window, and before the cop says anything he frantically says, "I know I was speeding and you can follow us and give us a ticket later. But we are just heading to the corner store cause the wife is busting at the seams and really needs to take a shit right now." So the cop follows them to the corner store. All the while my cousin's wife is yelling at him for making her so embarrassed. So they get there and says to her, "Look, I know you don't have to poop. But we can't afford a ticket right now. So, yeah, gotta just suck it up and get in there." So she begrudgingly goes into the corner store and waits around a while. When she comes back out, the cop is gone and her husband has this stupid grin on his face. She asks my cousin what happened and he said, smiling all the while, that the cop let him off with a warning. Edit. 40 kilometers. Not 40,000 miles. Not a cop. But my buddy and me were driving an old and registered uninsured beater once and got pulled over. Before the cop could ask anything, my friend rolls down the window and says, "How long is this going to take? I'm afraid I'm going to run out of gas." The cop then says, "Turn off the engine." My friend replies, "If I turn off the car it won't start again without a jump and may not even start at all." Cop waved us off at that point. I crested a hill going 85 in a 70 only to see an officer sitting on the side of the road in his Ford Explorer. I knew he had me. So I pulled over before he could even pull out and turn his lights on. When he came up to my window he noticed a little helicopter sticker on the side of my car. Seeing the sticker he asked me, "They let you drive like that on Fort Rucker?" It was a pretty good assumption since that's where Army flight school is. And I was about an hour away from the base. Of course, me being smart and not stationed there anymore, replied, "I don't know, sir. I'm stationed at Fort Benning." To which he fired back, "They let you drive like that on Fort Benning?" I gave him a chuckle and a "No sir. Let me go" with a verbal warning. Overall it was a 8/10 experience. Would do over.